folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa here on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. It's no longer Wednesday. Wow, it's Thursday already. Thursday, the 22nd of July, in the joy or misery of the pandemic era here, and the authorities who seem to have lost touch with reality and call us science deniers, but they're the science deniers, and we'll leave it at that. But I have a special featured guest today on, and we're going to talk about an event that's coming up this weekend, which last time around I covered this live back in March, but this time I'll be on the road for the Major League Rugby Conference Finals in Atlanta, so I won't be able to cover it live. I will be providing analysis and footage after the fact, and perhaps even as it unfolds, if I'm able to put that together from Atlanta. But my guest today is Raam Naicker. Raam, if you could join us there real quick. How's it going today?
Yes, great. Thank you very much, Chris.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for having me on your show.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for your flexibility. You and I talked offline ahead of time. We know that that the PooTube, as I affectionately call this platform, the PooTube, they instead of YouTube, PooTube, they have some anger with certain issues. But the last time I covered this event we were talking about a global event. So let me explain what I remember last time. You can tell me what's going on now. So this was all over the world, and it was huge in the UK. It was big in Berlin. It was also big in the Netherlands. It was not so big in Australia. Mostly because the fascists run Australia now. And actually, to be honest, in South Africa, I was very disappointed. I actually covered it from Cape Town, from Soweto, from Pretoria, from Durban, and the numbers, it turned out, were very small. Now, there are lots of factors for that, real concerns about the pandemic and possibly getting ill, some people, but also the police, when people came to the police and requested permits like you're supposed to do, and they did the right thing, they were limited to 500 in some cases, or they tried to deny them permits, even though they were perfectly able to have permits. So that was the Worldwide Rally for Freedom and Democracy, and that's what I was hoping to cover it. But a whole bunch of people glommed onto it with their own different issues, and it got a little confusing. So this one I saw advertised, and the link is below, folks, if you want to check it out, for the Worldwide Demonstration 3.0. It's below the video. Check it out. That's what this is about. Can you tell me a little bit more about the event, and then we'll get into it?
Yeah, just let me give you a bit of background how I got involved in this thing,
Sure.
Chris. So the first one was in March, as you said. I was not able to make that because I was on a course. I did want to go, but I couldn't make it. And then the second one was in May. Now, it was announced actually quite early, but the venue was not announced. So people were aware that it's going to happen, but they didn't have a venue. The venue only got announced, I think, on the Tuesday of that week. When the event was done on Saturday. So for those couple of days, we managed to get about 50 people in 4 ways, which I thought was actually quite brilliant for such a short notice. And then, but it was very disorganized because there wasn't really much coordination. I can understand because it was a short notice. But I looked at this and I said, you know, we are way behind the rest of the world in terms of numbers. And so I decided that I should take the lead and for the next event, which is this Saturday, to actually have a properly coordinated rally. And that's how I got involved. And so I arranged for a team of there's 15 of us in an action group that are actually coordinating this event.
My apologies.
So that's all I
Recording in progress.
I didn't start the recording at the beginning. Sorry. That's in case the tube stripped stuff off my channel. We've still got the recording. So apologies for that. Just so you know, it's not National Security Agency or South African Intelligence checking in on a conversation. It was me.
Okay, fine.
So listen, the reason I was interested in this last time, for it's newsworthy, number one. Here in the U.S., it was portrayed, it was only covered by one news media outlet that I could find. That's Newsweek, which is a captured leftist magazine that once upon a time was a venerable news source, but it's unreliable. Went bankrupt once already. The leftists salvaged it. So when I say leftist, I'm not picking people on the left. I'm talking about the far left. That's what I'm talking about. So people can be on the left. They can be on the right of the spectrum. I don't have issues with that, but the far left drive me nuts just as much as the far right does. But this event, the last time, the only place I could find any coverage of it in the U.S. was before it happened was Newsweek. And Newsweek called this a LMNOP Anon, and you know who I'm talking about there. That's someone I'd never even heard of. When they keep that's this controversial figure who puts all these conspiracy theories. They said he was behind it, whoever that is, and they also said that it was a white supremacist rally. And when this event unfolded last time, I asked the lady in Soweto who's black, and I told her that, and she said, I said, so how's that white supremacy thing going for you there in Soweto? And she laughed and she panned the camera and she says, what are you talking about? I'm here with my brothers and sisters, and there were Indians and there were whites and Afrikaners and blacks. No colors with that event. It was in Soweto, but she laughed it off. It really had nothing to do with that, but that's how corrupt the media is. They portrayed it such. I mean, honestly, your Afrikaner accent really confuses me, and you know your stereotypical Afrikaner Boer look there really strikes me. No, obviously not
Okay.
not a white supremacist. I'm going to say. So this is not about that, is it? This is about suppression, liberty, and freedom, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the theme of the rally is freedom, and we're discouraging anything that deviates from that theme. So it's basically freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of
Assembly,
freedom of health. There's 5 of them. What's the last one? Okay, but it's basically your freedoms that we are trying to defend. That's got hijacked through this pandemic. So yeah, that's the focus.
Well, absolutely. And I would say in the case of South Africa, it's almost like a dream come true for the ANC from a control perspective. They're loving this. The National Coronavirus Command Council is an undemocratic, unelected, unaccountable, capricious body that hands down decisions which violate the constitutional rights of South Africans. And they claim it's based on science, but I don't know who their scientists are. I think they're Sangomas, and they're using Muti because, I mean,
So yeah, this is the thing that what I'm very much against is that they do not allow any debate on this. I mean, they just say that this is how it is, and you're not allowed to question it at all. And I've got a big problem with that.
Well, that's it. No, it's a good point, because last year when the Trumpster here in the States was leading the Operation Warp Speed and pushing through to get these jabs for people in record time, and I'm not promoting or speaking for or against that. That's just something that happened. I'm just talking about facts here. When that happened, all these leftists, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, endless pundits and commentators, they all came out and said, "Oh, it's dangerous. You can't take that. It's not safe. He's got secret contracts to make billions of dollars off this. Trump had secret contacts to make money off." Anyway, so they're going on and on. Now, that was everything. And I did a video which wasn't safe for this platform. I put it on a different platform, Odyssey and Rumble, in which I just put up screenshots. It took 2.5 minutes to run through 3 seconds each of these screenshots, just playing while I'm narrating. And you can see all of these people in news reports where they say it's unsafe, it's dangerous. Now, it's perfectly safe for them to question the efficacy, and I don't dispute that. I actually agree. Taking the safeguards off of developing something like this is a challenge, is a danger. It could cause problems. Normally, to develop something, it takes 7 to 15 or 20 years in the States to come up with a new one. So there's a risk there. And I said that, and I said if it's dangerous, you're going to have to blame Trump. I actually said that. Now they question it, but now that the Manchurian cadaver, by the way, that's my name for our president, the Manchurian cadaver. Now that the Manchurian cadaver is in office here in the States, the narrative is flipped. The leftists and the people controlling the political scene in the States, if you do exactly what they did a year ago and question scientifically or raise concerns or say, well, you know what, I'm healthy, then you're demonized. You're a threat to free speech. You're a threat to public health. It's absolutely ridiculous, the double standards here, because they did the same and did it worse, but for political reasons. And scientific people and general citizens actually have genuine concerns today. Some, not all. Yes. And it's on both sides of the spectrum. People think it's only people on the right that have issues with getting jabbed. It's people across the political spectrum who have questions about this. And what you're saying, that's why I'm saying this plays in this whole orthodoxy that's out there. You can't question anything. You just have to take it for what they say. Like, they're the experts. Come on, give me a break. I mean, these experts who got it wrong time and time again.
Yeah, Chris, for me, if you are convinced that what you're saying is the truth, then you should be open to challenge it, to be challenged on it.
Exactly.
Right? And this is the main issue. They're not open to challenge. This is the way it is. This is the rules you must follow. And I'm afraid I'm not going to do that. And that's what we're fighting.
Raam, I'm with you because that leads from one thing to another, and it's a very short journey to totalitarianism. I mean, it really is. People think this is conspiracy or this is hyperbole. It's not. Look at what's happened in South Africa. Last year, a 21-day lockdown to get the hospitals ready. Here we are 18 months later. They still don't have hospitals ready. In fact, they have fewer intensive care beds now because the Charlotte Mackexy hospital burned and they didn't repair it. They spent 5 weeks awarding a tender. So they didn't prepare anything. It's insane.
No. Yeah. It's such a sham. It's totally ridiculous. And now we in lockdown again. The lockdown's been extended to the 25th, the day after actually the rally. And we said we're going ahead. We don't care about lockdown. This is our freedoms we're fighting for. And we're going to go ahead with the rally.
Well, Raam, I understand. I don't blame you. I mean, it's perfectly legal and safe to loot and riot. So why not have a rally?
Well, exactly. And we're going to make sure that it's peaceful. So if we get any intervention by the police, we have a plan to deal with that as well.
Oh, excellent, excellent. No, it's crazy. So I'm sure you saw this week, former Deputy Chief Justice Musa Naicker issued his commission's report. Kind of strange they even had a commission about whether it's safe to hold free and fair elections in October for municipal elections. Which, of course, if that election was held today, now I have predictions on the election. I'm a historian and political scientist, and I had predictions despite what I consider to be abysmal performances by all opposition parties over the last 18 months when they had the golden opportunity to expose the. I mean, the ANC makes all your ads for you. You don't have to do anything.
Absolutely.
So how's the beach going for you? How are those open-toed shoes? Oh, you can't buy those. Courtesy of the ANC. Would you like some? Yes. Would you like some cooked chicken? Sorry, thank the ANC. No booze. Anyway, so it's just so easy to do, and none of them have done anything. But it's just so now they're saying they can't have this election because it's not free and fair. That's going to have to go to Parliament, of course, and be voted on. But here's the thing. 28 African states held elections since the pandemic began. Some have held multiple elections, like presidential and parliamentary. So there's been about 35 elections across Africa. Now, we're talking about the advanced, industrial revolution, third digital age countries like the Central African Republic, or the unrecognized country of Somaliland, Tanzania, Ethiopia, which has a civil war going on in the Tigray region, still held an election. Now, it wasn't necessarily free and fair, but they held an election. The point is, South Africa, the most advanced, the most, generally speaking, wealthy, although Nigeria's economy is based larger, but they've got 210 million people, so that's why it's 4 times population. But the wealthiest country in Africa, the wealthiest square mile in Santon, the most advanced telecommunications, the country that had the world's first heart transplant back in the 1960s, they can't have a free and fair election. I went to an election which had the highest turnout in 40 years here in America. And we also had the highest number of votes ever in a presidential election in the midst of all this. I stood social distancing. I didn't have a face covering. I didn't get sick. I didn't catch anything. I used good hygiene. There are methods people can use, but apparently not in South Africa. And you see where I'm going with this, Raam? Totalitarianism. Yes. This is an excuse.
Yeah, because their performance, especially now, is abysmal. So they're really scared. I think they're scared. So they want to push it.
Well, I think they're absolutely terrified. I mean, that's why I was getting to the predictions. I got off track there a little bit. But I said that in the past that the ANC's hold on Durban isn't as strong as people think it is. I mean, you look at what they got in the last municipal elections and in the national elections, not as strong as they've gotten in the past. And I said that if the IFP, this is starting a year and a half ago, I said if the IFP gets its act together, which it hasn't in that time, then and if this lockdown continues, people are going to have angry and be frustrated, and there may be people even flock to the DA banner, and possibly an IFP DA coalition could form in Durban. And I said that's possible, but now if you held the election in Durban this minute, I bet they would get 20% of the vote at best.
They will get trashed, totally trashed.
Totally
so they know
destroyed, and that's why they want to delay this.
Yeah, it's all political.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely.
And Chris, none of these regulations make sense. Not one of them makes sense.
And come on! The ban on e-commerce was only fair to traditional bricks and mortar stores who can't afford to have an e-commerce presence. After 30 years of e-commerce sales, they aren't there.
Yeah. So that's my main issue. There's no sense in any of the regulations, but we're supposed to follow it. No. That's not the way I want to operate in my life.
Well, and it doesn't make any sense. Everything they tell you simply turns out to be false. So RNA, exposed to ultraviolet radiation, doesn't exist for 4 or 5 months on a surface. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, that's science. That's a fact. I mean, the sun is powerful. It's dangerous. That's why we get skin cancer. It fries our skin, especially color folks like me who are pink. We really get fried by the sun. But so spending 551 million rand in Gauteng province alone to clean the schools 4 months after they were closed, no one's been in them. All you need is a mop and a broom and a little bit of soap and water and, half a dozen unemployed people. And
how much did you say, Chris?
551 million rand in Gauteng province.
Million.
No,
Oh
million,
my
million, not billion, million.
My goodness, it's $500 million.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's over 30 million US dollars to clean schools. Now, of course, it all went to corrupt BEE enterprises.
Yes,
There was no need for it. And that's on
yes.
top of, so last year, the ANC said that it would cost 20 billion rand to buy the jabs at full cost for all 60 million South Africans. Okay? All right? So 20 billion rand. So they knew this a year ago, but they took no action to secure that. They put a little bit of money in the COVAX scheme, and it didn't go anywhere because it's run by bureaucrats. They're getting nothing done. And instead of approaching AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott Laboratories, Moderna, all these different companies and saying, hey, listen, we have advanced pharmaceutical industry here. We have testing capability. How about we help you out? We can provide test subjects who volunteer. We can help with research. We'd like to get in on the ground floor and help you guys. And here's a deposit so that we can get the first jabs. They didn't do any of that. Instead, they wait until it's all over. And then Cyril Ramaphosa comes out and starts screaming vaccine apartheid when his government did nothing. Now, back to the money. So they said at full price it would cost 20 billion rand. Okay? 20 billion rand. Last year, in July and August, they got $285 million from the African Development Bank, the ANC did. In August, they got $1 billion from the New Development Bank, or the BRICS Bank. And then in August, they also got $4.3 billion from the International Monetary Fund. That's $5.6 billion, or not at the time the exchange rate was like 18 to 1. That's 90 billion rand. So there's 4.5 times the total amount you need to give everybody a jab. And now they're like, we don't have any money for jabs. And so what they do is they use their racism narrative to guilt these idiots in the West into giving away the intellectual property to Aspen Pharmacare free, giving away the equipment to produce the stuff for free. And that's not enough. We have to give Aspen Pharmacare $711 million to make the vaccine. Well, that worked out real well, didn't it, for Ramaphosa and Aspen Pharmacare?
Yeah. No, the misappropriation of the funds is just totally. You can't even put any perspective to it. It's completely out of hand. Yeah.
Well, Raam, let's learn a little bit about you, because I'm sure people might be interested if you don't mind sharing. So where'd you grow up? And I think you were a businessman at one point. Do you mind sharing any of that? Or is that too personal?
No, I can share that. I grew up in Umzinto in KwaZulu-Natal. You know South Africa, right?
Been there 450 times.
Okay, right. Yeah. KwaZulu-Natal. So I grew up there. I left Natal in 1983, and I started working in Sasol in Secunda.
Okay.
In Mpumalanga. And then was there for quite a while. And then in 2009 is when I came up to Gauteng, to a company called Honeywell in Midrand. And then from then till last year, I was in their employ as a technical trainer for the product called the Honeywell DCS. It's an American distributed control system. So I was the trainer for that product. So last year, because of COVID, I was in a quandary because the lockdown started in March, and then basically all training stopped. So basically I was made redundant since the training stopped. And then I was still working from home, although not actually training. And then I decided maybe it was a good idea to actually take early retirement. I'm now 60, and retirement age is 63. But I thought because of this COVID pandemic thing that maybe it's a good idea to try for the early retirement. And when I did suggest it to the company, they said they don't have that as a policy, but they did offer me a separation package. And so in August last year, I took it on my birthday month. And that's actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because if I did not do that, I would not be able to do what I'm doing now, basically fight for my freedom. For our freedom, because being in the corporate environment, you're very, very restricted as to what you can do, especially in the public. So yeah, I thought that was divine intervention, that I actually decided to take a separation package at that time. And yeah, I'm not looking back. So now I'm free to basically do what I want, which is I'm very passionate about freedom, and that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting for our freedom.
Well, Rob, I'm right there 100% with you. I served 36 and a half years in the Army, and 23 of those overseas, supporting and defending the Constitution, protecting people's liberties, and things like that. So I'm definitely the same way. And like you, but to a more severe restriction, being in the corporate world, you got to be careful about what you say, and you really don't have free speech because, things can destroy your company that are just innocent. So you got to be careful. Imagine as a commissioned officer and an intelligence officer, what things I can't say. But these are restrictions we accept voluntarily in order to participate either in the corporate world or to serve in uniform to defend our country. But now we've both left that part of our lives, and we can say what we want to and talk about what we want to, at least for the moment, until the tech censors take us down.
Yes, until we get arrested, maybe.
Exactly. So let me ask this question: can you tell us a little bit about the event this weekend in South Africa? Are you organizing it for all of South Africa? Or are you organizing it 4 ways? Or are you working with other people? How's it working? And are you expecting a large crowd? Or maybe we should let people know there's only going to be 3 people there. Wink, wink. 3 people.
No, okay. So the event is advertised throughout the country. There's one person that took a lead on and she came in pretty late. Took a lead to organize events in any town or city in the country, but she came in a bit late. Also affiliated to worldwide demonstrations. Her name is Mandy. But the main events are basically in Cape Town, Durban, and Joburg, which is now going to be 4 ways. Mm-hmm. And so I am in Midrand, which is close to 4 ways. So I took the lead for the 4 ways event. There's a person in Cape Town that's taking the lead, and the person in Durban as well.
And what time is this going to take place on Saturday?
We all coordinated for 11 a.m., starting at 11 a.m. on Saturday.
Will there be? Is it a march or standing around, placards, speakers?
Okay, so it's a different program for each of the cities. For Cape Town, it's going to be a walk or march or whatever, and Durban's going to be basically a gathering and some people speaking at the gathering. And our event is going to be a march and a gathering in 4 ways.
Okay. Now, any idea whether there'll be any media coverage, or will the captured fake stream, lame stream?
We are going to do a live stream to person here called Loving Life, or the company called Loving Life. No. Scott Balson, I don't know if you know that. No, but there's that's been arranged. That's one live stream that we confirmed, but there might be others as well. People are coming in last minute offers.
No, I got you. Yeah. But I meant any word from ENCA or state broadcasting or SAB. Yeah, that's now they not as I'm aware. I suppose when it took them 5 days to discover that Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal were on fire before they showed up for that, they probably will miss this event entirely. Yeah, it's really disappointing, the media in South Africa. It's fascinating, the events that unfolded in KZN and Gauteng. Not only did I predict them when Jacobson was convicted, and especially when he failed to turn himself in by the 4th of July, I said this is going to come to a head. Kind of predicted everything that rolled out from there, including the attacks on infrastructure, because this wasn't about looting. That's a diversionary tactic. And the media didn't start showing it, although Newsroom Africa did have people out on the ground pretty early, about day 3 or day 4, and they were kind of courageous, although some of their reporting is a little off the mark, but I have to give them credit. But ENCA finally showed up about day 6 or 7, and then SABC, and then suddenly now News 24 acts like it's the pulpit. It has all the information because it's all the time riots for the last 3 days, but it wasn't there for 11 days. It didn't even cover events. So I suspect that this event, kind of like the biker rally against farm murders, and also the Cape Town March last year against the lockdown, which was destroying the tourism industry. None of that stuff is covered by the mainstream media there. They're too busy creating racial narratives and lying about South Africa's performance. I saw the other day saying that, well, the IMF thinks that South Africa is poised for great growth. Growth? Everybody's leaving, man.
No, India. So our plan for that, Chris, is each of the people that are going to be at the event are going to be taking pictures and videos. Mm-hmm. And linking up to the worldwide demonstration, the main channel as well. Mm-hmm. But after the event, we will be sharing those widely.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I'll be getting some of those videos, which I'll be stitching together and adding commentary and posting those on my channel to let people know about the event from a news perspective after the fact. And maybe we can, after it's over, maybe get some interviews and ask people how they thought it went and concerns going forward and issues. Lars Salas has said that please tell Raam that he must tell the event leaders that they must make several announcements encouraging people to exchange numbers without networking. It ends when the protest ends. That's a good point. Lars Hollis makes a good point.
Yeah.
Rather than just being a one-off that just is on Saturday and then we go home when,
Yes, that's a good point. We'll take note of that. So we did consider if the internet went down in that period, which might happen, people will be sharing the videos after that. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have your videos on your phone anyway. So if the internet goes down, we can't live stream. We'll do it later on.
No, I got you, Ron. But what I think what Lars Hollis is trying to say is that the problem with things like this is not your event, but events like this is that people get all geared up. They all show up for it, and it's a big deal. It's a huge turnout. It's wonderful. And then people walk away, and then, okay, that's it. I think what Lars Hollis is trying to say is that maybe it might be very helpful for folks to build a network of like-minded people so that they can share information about this and other events. And then every time something happens, you're poised, you have a community you can draw, and it'll come right away. You're not starting over from scratch. I think that's where you're going, Lars Hollis. Tell me if I'm wrong. Just let me know. Anyway, so that's actually good advice, I think, if people are willing to share that.
No. I'll take up on that. But we do have a Telegram group where this is all being, all this information is being shared in the Telegram group. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I got you on that. Well, as far as, internet and service going down, I was in Washington, D.C. for the insurrection on the 6th of January. I'm sorry, that's actually a protest, a lawful assembly of 500,000 people who had 5 permits to protest at the Capitol building and assemble peacefully. I have 2 hours of footage of people obeying the law and behaving themselves. I also have some instigators that showed up, which were plants. But anyway, the criminals who broke into the building that was undefended by the Capitol Police, that's a whole separate issue. But I covered that event. But the point of mentioning that is that my cell phone service was gone. I couldn't pass data. Now, a lot of people, they first go, well, that's conspiracy. No. Okay, look, it's Washington, D.C., which has demonstrations and million-man marches all the time for one event or another. You can't have 1 million people in a place that tight with cell phone networks and then let them all flood the network. It'll collapse. It'll be a cascading effect. So what the cell phone providers do is when the volume of phones in the region, in that area, the cell towers go up, they categorize people. I mean, look, if you're the president of the United States, your phone's not going to be blocked, right? If you're the head of IBM, your phone probably won't be blocked. But if you're Chris Wyatt, who's just some subscriber, your data is going to be stopped because they have a lawful responsibility to be able to pass emergency data. And that's actually what happened that day. So I kind of expected that. I had 2 different providers, and both of them I couldn't pass any data. So I recorded everything that day and then sent it out later that evening when I got home. But the reason that it was like that is because as I was leaving town, I left before any of the shenanigans happened at the Capitol building. And then it happened about 15 minutes after I left. I didn't know that. I was walking back to my car, which was a good mile away. I got there, and then I received a text message on the emergency notification from the cell phone provider. So the point I'm making is that sometimes that's intentional, but sometimes it's intentional for malicious purposes. Look at Eswatini. Right next door in Swaziland, there's no internet, there's no mobile communications because the government doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. So you got to watch it from both angles.
Yeah.
So you sound passionate about freedom. Where did this passion come from? Is it just a deep faith and people should have the right to be themselves, or is it something you've always had in life, or did you come to it later in life?
I think I've always had this passion since a little kid. Because remember, when you're a little kid, you're always asking why. Everything you ask is why is it? Why is it like this, and why is it like that, and why, right? We were all like that as little kids. And at some stage, as you're growing up, your parents get tired of that and tell you to shut up, don't ask why anymore. Yeah? And I never did that. I still ask why. And I ask why about everything. So that's why I'm so passionate about this government saying, just follow the rules because we say so. I'm not going to do that. You're not telling me why.
Absolutely. Yeah. If your parents are still with us, I imagine they probably still. Sorry, Till's telling you to shut up, quit asking questions.
Yeah. No, I won't stop asking questions. I'm always asking questions.
No, it's good. I mean, how else do we learn if we don't ask questions? I mean, that's the right way to do it. No, it's so events the past couple weeks have been quite a shock to the system for everybody. I mean, for those who actually believe in the concept of a democratic South Africa, for those who thought South Africa was on a path that was, despite the pandemic, was on a decent path. And for those who knew that the ANC is basically a corrupt RICO enterprise, a racketeering organization, it's still a shock to the system. I mean, it's insane, the carnage that was wrought, especially in KZN. I don't know if you have family down there or business interests down there, but did it affect you directly or anybody you know?
I have family down in the south coast, the Scotborough. Unfortunately, they were not directly affected.
Oh, thank goodness. That's good.
There were threats that they would be affected, but it didn't happen. So they're fortunate.
Well, that's
but they're still on the alert because apparently this thing is not over. There's still murmurs of a second attack.
Yeah, that's definitely been circulating, and not the least of which because the government himself has said that. I mean, Ramaphosa has come out and said that there's going to be another wave of these attacks without providing any information. Of course, we're supposed to believe the intelligence services that he says failed. Now they're telling us it's coming. So come on, man, come on.
Failed abysmally. total mess.
Oh, what a total mess. Yeah. So let's see. So you're 60. So you've grown up in all kinds of circumstances. You're from South Africa. You obviously were born during the apartheid era in South Africa and lived through part of that as a young man. And then got it. Were you into business already during that era, or did you get into business after that?
I was never in business. I was always in the employ of a company. So I started my first job at Sasol as an instrument mechanic.
Okay. And when was that?
What was the instrument mechanic?
When? Oh,
1983.
Okay. So we were in the final stages of the National Party's rule. It was the last decade of their rule. Okay. It was.
And then I grew.
Go ahead.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
That basically grew from there, and I eventually ended up as a technical trainer, basically in the instrument field as well, but in the control system side of the instrument field, and totally enjoy that. I love teaching, one of my passions as well. So I left the job that I really loved, but yeah, circumstances dictated that I don't continue there.
Well, but
I'm very happy with my life as it is right now. The fact that I have the freedom to pursue what I'm passionate about.
But
I'm supposed to be in retirement and taking things easy, but I decided I'm fighting for my freedom, because if you don't fight for your freedom, it's all going to be taken away, and then you've got no life. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's it.
Hey, folks, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa here on the Adaba Broadcasting Network. My guest today is Raam Naicker, who is one of the organizers for the worldwide demonstration rally for freedom and democracy. Is taking place again this weekend, the 24th of July in South Africa at 11 a.m. These things are kicking off, and he's coordinating the events taking place in 4 ways there in Gauteng. We're just talking about that. Raam was just talking about, you don't have your freedom. But I was going to say that now that you've left that employment and you're retired, it does give you the flexibility, since you love teaching. If you want, you can, something comes along, you can take and pick and choose like an a la carte menu. You know what? That looks like a good opportunity. I'll help these guys out. That's a lot of flexibility. I mean, that's, I don't know if you're doing that now, but that's something to consider since you love teaching, if something comes along. Have you thought about that, or are you already doing that?
Well, my primary focus now is to fight for the freedom. But if things settle down and I've got more time, then I've got lots of hobbies. I mean, I do cooking, baking, DIY, lots of DIY. I can do carpentry, plumbing. I'm a percussionist. I play drums, percussion.
Cool.
I play for the band as well. I've got lots of hobbies, so there's no shortage of interest.
So you're not going to be bored. You're not going to be bored.
No, I don't even know what that is, Chris. I don't know what that means. Boredom. No.
Well, I'm with you there. People, always saying to me that, well, you're retired. Life must be easy. You got all this time in your hands. Like, what time? I work 16, 18 hours a day, most days, 7 days a week. So, I don't know what retirement is. I've just left active duty in the military because I used up all the time I had available. You can only serve so many years. I just noticed that Bev is in the chat, Bev Vim, who helped link us together and who I'd worked with on this the last time around back in March that I did this. But welcome, Bev. Yeah. So, but
Can I say something?
Yeah, please do.
I love the saying. If somebody says they are bored, I believe those people are boring. If you say you're bored.
well, that's kind of hard to debate that point. It sounds pretty valid. But speaking of freedom, Raam, you're talking about defending your freedom, protecting your freedom. But I mean, a lot of it's already gone. I mean, first off, South Africa, you have a law that if you use a word that's offensive, you can be a convicted felon and go to prison for it. Now, I'm all against people using inappropriate names like the K word. That's just vile and disgusting. But prison for speech? That's insane. But that's the law in South Africa. That's before the pandemic, and now you've got you've got curfews, and you've got, when this thing started, your Minister of No Trade, Ibrahim Patel, that's what I call him, the Minister of No Trade, because he's
No trade. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you'd like all my names. We've got the Minister of Injustice, Ronnie Lamola. We've got the Minister of Irrational Affairs and not was it not? Is it Trish? What is it? Anyway, Kozazani Dummies. I have to look at it and I get it right, but she's Irrational Affairs and Unconventional. Anyway, so I have names for all of them. But you got Ibrahim Patel, who says that we can't have e-commerce. Well, how the heck does that help with the pandemic? If you're trying to keep people apart and out of stores and not congregating, warehouses full of goods loaded onto an assembly belt by 3 or 4 employees who are hundreds of meters apart is probably the best way. And then one person picks up the box, delivers it, wearing gloves, and then you get it. But his argument was it wasn't fair to bricks and mortars. So you couldn't do e-commerce. You couldn't go out of your house to shop. You couldn't serve. You couldn't stand in your yard without being threatened or arrested. The list goes on. No cooked chicken. Now, the one that always got me the most, Ron, was that no open-toed shoe sales, because we all know that the vector for this is the big toe. That big toe is the reason why everybody's getting the Rona.
This is what really irritates me. It's making no sense. And I'm a person who I like logic. It must be sensible. It's making no sense, and it's getting me very frustrated. Yeah. No,
absolutely. And it doesn't make any sense. And in fact, every time the ANC is re-implemented, like the alcohol ban, never mind the damage it's done to the economy and South Africa's reputation, but they're like, it's going to cut down hospital entries. But hospitals, it's not really having the effect they say, and these things never work. I mean, here we are, 18 months in, and the ANC keeps patting themselves on the back. Every time the squirrel gets up there, the president gets up and says, well, the actions we've taken. What actions? It's just worse. It's worse. You keep reporting worse and worse and worse. So how are your actions working? Meanwhile, other countries which aren't taking such draconian measures are doing fine, relatively speaking.
Yeah. All the measures that they have taken have damaged the economy more and made more people poorer and poorer. It's not helped the economy at all.
No,
so there's no benefit to the actions that they've taken at all.
And there's no forethought. There's no. Okay, so let me give you an example here. Last year, when they did the lockdown the first time for 21 days, in March 27th last year, they banned the sale of alcohol. Okay, I get it, your argument. And a lot of people around the world went in for this because a lot of countries did alcohol bans initially because people overdrink. Although, so the 15% of the population that abuses alcohol means 85% of us who don't abuse it have to suffer because of that. But anyway, but people, okay, that makes sense. But they also banned the transport of alcohol. So what does that mean? South Africa has a world-class wine industry, and it is a reliable supplier of high-quality wines to countries around the world, particularly the United States and Japan, Australia, places like that. People buy the wine, and they count on those deliveries. Well, they wouldn't let them ship for 3 weeks. Guess what? That's 3 weeks of deliveries didn't make it. So what do you think happens to the wholesalers who rely on South African wine? Well, it's not there. Screw you. We'll buy Chilean wine. We'll get Australian wine. We'll get Argentinian wine. And that's what they did. So they irreparably damaged South Africa's wine industry. And half the profit for the industry is from exports of wine, not from wine in South Africa. It's just these stupid decisions that make no sense. And talking about freedom, that's a decision that should have been open for debate. There should have been, the alcohol industry should have been, the wine industry should have been part of the conversation. The ministry should have talked to businesses. They should have talked to people before they make these draconian decisions. These people have no concept of what they're doing, and they're taking your freedom every day.
Totally. Yeah. They're basically, as you said, totalitarian. They just dictate, and you just must follow. There's no consensus on the decision. There's no discussion, nothing. It's totally insane.
Yeah, no, it's actually crazy. So the event this weekend, what are you hoping for? Are you, because I mean, it's hard to predict. So I mean, from my perspective, because
I'll tell you, Chris, I'm hoping for more than 50.
Okay. There we go. All right. So anything over 50 is success. All right. That's the bar.
No. So I'm hoping for 500 at least as a minimum. If I get 1,000, that would be really, really great. Yeah.
No, that would be awesome. Like I said, you and I discussed earlier, I was a bit disappointed last time around. But, I mean, there were a lot of reasons for it, mitigating circumstances. People who, in good faith, went to the police to get a permit were harassed by the police and denied, or they wouldn't return their calls, they wouldn't issue the permit. And then where they were issued, they issued it, then they pulled it back, then they issued it again, and they went from 500 to 250 in some places. And the Bloemfontein rally was probably the most disappointing, and Yanni Meyer was involved in that. and he had a lot of hope for that thing, and almost nobody showed up because of a combination of factors. So, so I'm tempering my expectations this time around. I'm hoping for a good turnout. And of course, I'm sure that people are being encouraged to be safe and use good sanitary measures.
Chris, there's a lot more effort that went into this event. So I'm hoping that there'll be a better turnout. We even have a billboard up at on William Nicol that went up yesterday, basically also advertising the event. So it's the adverts are gone viral. They've gone on all social media. Okay. So because of that, I'm hoping for a much better turnout.
Raam, now that you're not working in business or teaching on a daily basis, I don't know what your network's like. Are you out and about much, or are you a homebody because of this pandemic? Or what I'm getting at is, are you having much interaction with people? And the reason I'm asking is I want to get a sense, if you can, since you're in Gauteng, what's the feeling now? I mean, we've seen Ramaphosa disappear for 7 days or 8 days before he finally says something about the crisis in KZ and Gauteng, while billions, if not trillions of dollars, well, hundreds of billions of dollars worth, or hundreds of billions of rand worth of damage is done. He doesn't show up till days later. And then after it's pretty much over and it's safe, he goes down his gangster-like convoy down there and he shovels stuff in Gauteng. But what's the mood in Gauteng? I mean, I would imagine that a lot of people of all ethnicities are very angry at the ANC right now. Am I off the mark?
I would say so as well. But my focus currently is on the people that are on board with what's going on. So I'm basically mixing with those kind of people, who know about what's going on. So it's difficult to talk to people that have masks on and basically don't want to look you in the eye. So yeah, but we do have plans after this event on Saturday. We have projects in place for actually going out and interacting with those people. People in lines who are getting the jab, for example, shopping centers. Yes, we do have projects for that going forward.
Well, Raam, we were talking about the contradictions and the nonsensical things that are done here. So South Africa's been under a state of disaster since 27 March of last year. They renew it every month for 30 days, and now people don't even notice when it's done. It used to be a big deal announcement. But I find it curious that now that South Africa has the jab to give to people, if you're in a state of disaster and the solution, according to the government, is to give people the jab so you get to a certain level within society, why is it that no one gets a jab on the weekend? They close on the weekend. Wouldn't you want to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to give everybody the jab? I mean, if it's that important.
I know that, actually. I didn't know they close on weekends.
Oh, no. Nobody in South Africa gets a jab on the weekend. The health services don't issue jabs on the weekends. But it's a state of disaster. If you're in a state of disaster, don't you want to emerge from it? Wouldn't you want to take the measure that improves it? I mean, if the dike is leaking, you want to put your finger in it all weekend, not just during the
week. I would think so. So yeah, that also doesn't make sense. So I don't know. The whole jab thing, totally against it. But my concern is if they try and make it mandatory, because there's lots of rumors about that going to happen, that they're going to make the jab mandatory.
Well, there's all sorts of things happening around the world related to that. France has mandated a passport in order to enter restaurants and such, and France is about to go up in flames because people are angry. And they don't realize the damage is going to be done to that. I mean, it's interesting because I've been a pincushion for the U.S. Army for 4 decades. Every possible immunization you get on the planet, I've had multiple times, including an extra yellow fever that was unnecessary at OR Tambo because they refused to accept my international health certificate, said it was on the wrong color paper. So I had to go pay $130 to get jabbed again for something I was already protected against. But no one ever demands to see my measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination wherever I go anywhere. No one ever demands to see my gamma-globin from back in the day and my hepatitis immunizations and all these other things. But now, in order to go to a restaurant, you have to produce something for this. This is, talk about freedom and invasion of privacy. This is insane beyond belief.
Total insanity.
I mean, and what's really, really bizarre about this, Raam, is that we spent the better part of 2 decades trying to get rid of stigma attached to HIV positive. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And now they're attaching stigma to this, and it's purely for political reasons. And where are all the liberties and rights groups, the American Civil Liberties Union, the Human Rights International, Amnesty Center? Why are these organizations speaking up about this? It's strange.
It's very strange. But there are people that are taking steps. I don't know if you heard of Rainer Fulmick from Germany. Mm-hmm. He's got a whole lot of doctors and legal people basically taking these companies to court. Have you heard about that, Chris?
No, I'm not familiar with that one. No.
Yeah, so that's on the cards. He's got quite a big group of people that are instituting court cases about everything about the COVID, about the pandemic, from the PCR tests to the masks to the lockdowns, all of it. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question, Raam. So you guys are rallying for democracy and freedom. In a perfect world, what would you hope for? Would you hope for the National Coronavirus Command Council to be disbanded, for restrictions to be lifted, for curfew to be gone, for the government to stop spying on citizens? What are you hoping for? Because clearly freedom is what you want.
For me, I would want liberty, basically making your own decision and taking the consequence of that decision. So, for example, if you decide that you want to steal somebody's property, then there must be consequence for that, and that must happen. So you must have the right to actually do that. That for me is freedom and liberty. Have the right to do that, but understand what the consequence will be, and that consequence must be implemented if you do that. Even the right to murder or whatever, you need the right. You need to be able to exercise that right, but also have the know that the consequence will be implemented. You will not get away. For me, that's important.
No, that makes sense. Absolutely. It's really fascinating how all the freedoms that people fought for in South Africa have been eroded in such short order and virtually no notice from the world. The world media is paying no attention to South Africa. In fact, it wasn't until about day 8 or day 9 that the stories even began to make the front pages of any international newspapers. In fact, one of my videos I put together, I took South African headlines, which were belatedly put up, but they were there about day 8, day 9. And then I showed at the end all these major international newspapers and news sites around the world, and not a mention of what was going on in South Africa, even though it was already a week old and the damage was untold. That was actually the peak of the events is around day 9. It's the 15th of July. So it's unbelievable how the world is not paying attention. The world seems to be locked onto April 27th, 1994. And that's the view the world has of South Africa, with people standing in queues for 9, 10, 11 hours to vote, and the Rainbow Nation. And that is not South Africa today. The ANC, for at least 15 years, has turned this into a gangster state. At least that's my view on it.
But the mainstream media is totally controlled because they're not covering any of these events, these rallies that are happening all over the world. I mean, there's apparently in London a couple of weeks ago, where I heard about 2 million people in the rally, not covered on mainstream media. I mean, that's absolutely criminal. This is the big event.
No, well, that's beyond a big event. That's astronomically big. I mean, a country of 62 million people, 2 million.
And it's not covered on BBC. They ignored it completely.
Well, the BBC is definitely a captured state operation. It's a major propaganda outlet, and it has been for decades. It's very disappointing. I use BBC reports when I do the news, but I usually do it to embarrass the BBC, not oftentimes report it, or I use it as an alternate source. But no, you're right. It's the same all over. It's very frustrating. And you think you can count on certain media outlets and they betray you. Here in the States, for a long time, Fox News claimed to be fair and balanced, but in the build up to the 2016 election, they became basically the propaganda outlet for Trump as a candidate, and helped get him elected. And then after he's elected, then they turned on him. And then in the 2020 events, they didn't cover him like they did before at all, and ignored him. And it's that's not objective. If you're going to cover it, cover it. If you're not going to cover it, don't cover it. But no, it's and you can't count.
It's all orchestrated.
It is
completely orchestrated. Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people say, well, it's because it's corporate. No. Corporations can be perfectly objective and fair and reasonable. That doesn't mean it's like that because the people who run the corporations, that's their worldview and that's what they want. And that's why they do it and they get away with it. And what's scary about this is that it's almost all of the major corporations with media around the world in every outlet. And it's the same here in the States in our universities. We see it in South Africa. You know, I did a stream a couple of days ago there, Raam, in which I had a presentation for Great Decisions. It's a lecture series that Ivy League schools do here in the States. And at the U.S. Army War College, they also do it. And I was asked to speak about South Africa's fragile democracy in 2018. And so I put that up on my stream and had myself on the camera below there. And you see the contrast with me, short hair, no beard. Anyway, but I was going through it and I talked about South Africa and the history, its institutions and things. And so many young South Africans were in the chat in my stream. They're like, I didn't know that. Like I mentioned that, you know, the South Africa didn't exist as a country before 1910, when the Union of South Africa Act from British Parliament created modern South Africa from African kingdoms, Boer republics, British colonies. And as South Africa was like, I didn't learn that in school. This is a born free. This is very disturbing how few people in South Africa actually know the history of South Africa.
Well, the entire syllabus is controlled. So they decide, the government decides what you're going to learn. You know, it's not up to you what you're going to learn in the school, unless of course if you go to private school where they can maybe change the syllabus. I'm not sure. But the good thing, Chris, about this is a lot of people now, because of the schooling situation, are doing homeschooling and non-schooling as well, which is actually very interesting. I thought it's actually a good thing that people can decide for themselves what they want to learn. They basically create their own syllabus and decide.
What is non-schooling? Did you say non-schooling?
Non-schooling, yes. That's even more interesting because so not non-schooling, unschooling.
Oh, unschooling. Okay, yeah. They're still getting education, but not in a school environment. Okay, gotcha. Like homeschooling. Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. But I mean, so schools are controlled, universities are controlled, media is controlled, social media is controlled, and now leftists who like to control things control virtually every government in the world. The UK.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Conservative Party runs the UK, but Boris Johnson, I think when he got infected with the Rona, his cognitive abilities went somewhere. They went out the window with him when he recovered because he seems like a loon now. Australia is unbelievably fascist. I don't know if you're watching what's unfolding in Australia.
I think they're taking the lead.
They are.
Followed close behind by Canada.
You're
now,
right
and now France.
You're right on it. I think that's worse. Australia, then Canada, then France. And South Africa probably comes in close after that, and states within the United States individually fall in there, but as a nation we're not quite there, despite the best desires and efforts of the Manchurian cadaver to make us that way.
So the advantages we have here in South Africa is that we have such a diverse population.
True.
Diversity of culture, and we're very difficult to control.
Well,
probably the least difficult to control in the world. So that's the advantage that we have in South Africa.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. That's South Africans are definitely difficult to control, and there's a few things about South Africans, and I told people that in my briefing that people got to watch the other day a few years ago. I said, you know, if you think Americans complain, you should listen to South Africans. Man, you get South Africans together, and within 5 minutes sitting down there complaining and moaning about something, it's really entertaining because I thought Americans complained a lot. We have a lot in common, South Africans and Americans, but very proud of our country despite its flaws. You're very proud of your country despite its flaws. But when we sit down, Americans and South Africans will start bitching about their country pretty quickly. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So listen, Raam, this is very interesting, and I'm glad that you had the time to come on and share this with us and about what's happening this weekend. And I hope you get a great turnout. It's definitely going to be something that the mainstream media is going to ignore. So we'll do our best to help promote it within the constraints of, you know, artificial intelligence and what we're allowed to say and not say. We'll do the best to let people know about it. And I just want to give you a chance here before we wrap up at the top of the hour. If you've got anything you'd like to share with the audience, or maybe you want to, you know, encourage people to come out or to help in some way or join the Telegram group, whatever you want to share there, just let people know about it because people are listening.
Whoever's listening on this chat, please share widely. We need the numbers. We really need the numbers on this one. That's the only way we're going to make an impact. And thank you. If you support this, we have our grateful thanks to everybody who will support it.
So the Telegram group, can anybody join the Telegram group?
Yes, it's public. Yeah.
What's it called?
I can give you the link that you can maybe post.
I'll do that. I just put you on the spot. Sorry about that. I thought you might have it off the top of your head.
Well, I'll tell you now. It's called. Where's this thing?
While Raam is looking for
Four Ways Worldwide Rally.
Okay,
4 Ways Worldwide Rally. So you do a search on Telegram, 4 Ways. You just do a search on 4 Ways, you'll find it.
Okay, and then for anybody that wants to learn about the potential rallies in your municipality somewhere in South Africa or anywhere around the world, the global site is in the description below the video there. So you can click on that link. That'll take you to the site for worldwide demonstrations, and you can find out where these things are taking place around the world. Hendo, I'm sure, will be paying close attention there in the UK to events in London, because I'm going to bet that it's going to be huge in London. You know, it's fascinating, Raam, because speaking of liberty, the British Parliament passed a law recently which bans public demonstrations. Can you imagine that? Now, they haven't been enforcing it because they'd have to arrest hundreds of thousands of people, but it's illegal to demonstrate in the UK now.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean,
it's probably coming here. That's probably coming here as well. It's crazy.
I mean, that's the country that gave us the Magna Carta that was the first limits on a monarch. Now, it didn't give us democracy, but the land of John Locke. And this is coming from the UK. This is I mean, they already have. It's already a land of security state. I mean, they've got like 6 million, closed circuit security cameras all over the country. So basically, anywhere you walk in the UK, even if you're on some country trail, you're going to be filmed, and they're going to use it against you. But now they argue that helps fight crime. Sure, but they still have high levels of crime. But now you can't demonstrate. I mean, that runs against the very concept of freedom of assembly, the right to seek redress. These are cherished freedoms in our country. In fact, the 6th of January, that's why 500,000 people showed up in Washington, D.C. to seek redress from their government. They were unhappy with what the government's doing and said, hey, we want you to consider something else. Of course, that got turned.
Well, the more they try to clamp down, the more the people are going to demonstrate.
Yeah.
The more they try to take away freedoms, the more people are going to demonstrate. So it's going to be a clash.
Well, that's the problem. And in the meantime,
I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but we can't just lie down and take it. Well, that's going to be our death.
But the problem is, in the meantime, until some sort of resolution or these authorities back off from their totalitarianism, people suffer. And many people suffer. I mean, look at 3 million people jobless in South Africa, thousands of businesses destroyed, the restaurant industry crippled. I mean, it's next time I get to South Africa, I'm going to have to eat at frickin' McDonald's or Steers because all the restaurants are closed. They've gone out of business. Only the big corporates can hang around. It's pretty or maybe Ocean Basket. I suppose you could eat Ocean Basket. That's okay. But rather than Steers, I'm not a fan of Steers or Wimpy.
I just want to say something, Nicholas. One of the groups that I'm joined is busy with off-grid living, working on going off-grid. Basically, not relying on corporation as much as possible. So, growing your own food, sourcing your own water. By the way, I've just ordered a air-to-water machine,
which captures moisture out of the air.
Captures my moisture out of the air, and so, well, obviously it needs electricity, but you can also run that off solar. So that's one of the steps I'm going in to get off the grid and become more independent. Because the more dependent you are on the system, the corporations and the grid, the more they can control you.
Yep, absolutely.
So this is the mindset. This is the mindset that people must adopt now. Try and get off grid and as little dependent on the system as possible.
It's time for ham radios to make a comeback.
Because Chris, the more you're dependent, the more they can control you. It's quite obvious. If you're not dependent on the system, then they have very little control over you.
Absolutely true. Well, Raam, it's been a pleasure chatting with you this morning. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, your concerns about freedom and liberty, and also what you're doing about it this weekend in particular, the event at 4 Ways. We appreciate that. Folks, feel free to join that Telegram group, and Raam's going to send me that link. I'll put it below this video in the description if you want to find it later on. Also, the link to the global site for the worldwide demonstrations is there already, so feel free to check in on it. We'll check back in on Raam. I'll be traveling tomorrow to Atlanta for the Major League Rugby Conference Final. The Rugby Atlanta versus Rugby United New York, and see who goes off the championship game. So I'll be in Atlanta Friday, all Saturday, and I don't get back to about midnight on Sunday. But in the meantime, I'll stay in touch with Raam through WhatsApp, and we'll try to keep touch. He'll be busy, but I'll see if I can keep up what's going on. And if I can, I'll do a little bit of live streaming over the weekend. I'll try to do that, but no promises. But we will definitely report on the events, and hopefully it'll be a good turnout there, Raam. Thank you so much for joining me. It is actually a distinct pleasure to have a conversation with you. You seem like a good oak, and we'd have to have a Rooibos, or I don't drink Casa Lager, so it'd have to be a Windhoek Lager.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. Really, really.
All right, folks. That's Raam Naicker. I'll let you go ahead and drop out in the waiting room and drop off, and I'll go ahead and close out the program now. Thanks. Or I can just put you there. Let me just put you in there. Thanks a lot, Raam. Okay.
Thank you. We are not live anymore.
No, we're still live. I'm putting you in the waiting room. You can drop off and close it. I'll put you in the waiting room, then I'm going to close out my stream. Okay, thanks. All right, so that's it, folks. That was Raam Naicker, who is in Gauteng, who is responsible for organizing the 4 Ways demonstration or rally for freedom and democracy as part of the worldwide demonstration taking place this Saturday, the 24th of July, 2021. This is the latest iteration of this event, complaining about and fighting for liberty and freedom around the world, which has been falsely portrayed on numerous occasions by the mainstream media. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot for that. I'll be back in 1 hour, less than 1 hour, with Kali Creel, the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of AfriForum, and a member of the Solidarity Organization in South Africa. Really looking forward to that. We're going to talk about civil defense, community organization, politicization of the security forces in South Africa, as well as rural insecurity, farm murders, and AfriForum in general. So tune in for that, folks. Everybody who tuned in for this, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope that you found something useful in this conversation. It was my pleasure to have a conversation with Raam. Bev, thanks for linking us together. I appreciate that if you're still in the chat. And best of luck to everyone who's organized events this weekend, whether it's in London, in Sydney, especially in Sydney, if it's in Canberra, if it's in South Africa. Good luck to you on your events. Safe, be healthy, be careful out there, and avoid any trouble. So, all right, guys, I'll be back shortly with Kali Creel. Make sure you come back. We want to make sure that's a really, really good, thank you, Bev. It'd be a really good stream. So God bless. And as always, we thank you for your patronage and support here on Chris Wyatt Africa as we fight to overcome suppression of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. Those are things we care about dearly. I didn't spend 4 decades of my life fighting to defend those things to see it taken away by corrupt politicians and corrupt corporate media elites. We'll do our best, and we'll keep pushing. We'll see you guys here within the hour for Kali Creel on Chris Wyatt Africa. Cheers.